Hello everyone and welcome to the Science Chat Show. Today we have a very eminent scientific personality with us, Dr. Pavani Cherukupally. And from whatever conversations I've had with her, I think that she's going to be modest, but you don't believe her cute smile and saying that she isn't too successful because she is, but she's pretty modest and I think modesty is a feature that scientists have a lot. Hi Pavani, welcome to our show.
Hi Navjot, and hello to your audience.
Thanks. How have you been?
I'm good. Like given the situation, I'm doing okay.
Okay. So I have this ritual on the show where instead of me sort of giving a brief bio of my guest, I request them to talk to our audience and become friends with them. So why don't you tell us about your background, your educational background, your family, where did you do your bachelor's from, what parts of the world you've lived in, and as we go on, we'll spill the beans on where you are right now. Yeah, the stage is yours.
I'm originally from Hyderabad, India, and Hyderabad is known for defense research and development labs that has like a huge influence on my career in pursuing scientific research career. And
I see.
my parents are also from Hyderabad, and my parents owned a small scale industry of making incident sticks that we use in our prayer. And I also like most of my early education was done in Hyderabad, where I also did my bachelor's at Pavani College of Engineering, which is under Usmania University system.
Okay, that's great. So all your childhood education has been in Hyderabad?
Yes.
Okay. And then you did your bachelor's in which field of engineering?
Actually, I did 2 degrees in India. Like one is like after 10th grade, I joined a diploma in mechanical engineering.
Okay.
And also bachelor's was in mechanical engineering again.
Okay. So the diploma probably was a 2 years thing, and then you had a 4 years bachelor's program.
No, actually at that time diploma was 3 years.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So like I
Okay.
had to spend 1 year extra, but it was like worth it. I think now they made it from 3 years to 2 years. Like
Okay.
if you do diploma,
Yeah.
then you can do 3 years of bachelor's.
Okay. And then as I know, but let the audience know that then you moved to Canada for your master's program. And why don't you tell us about what the master's program experience was as an international student? What are the subjects and skills that you learned? And how did your master's program or did your master's program experience encourage you to pursue a PhD?
Well, like I wanted to PhD like somewhere at the age of 7 or 8, as I
Oh,
said.
that's an
So
early recognition.
yes, like as a young child, like I had like many ambitions, and the one I hooked on from the early on kind of is like a PhD. I want to be called as a doctor, no
I
matter
see.
what the subject was. But I wasn't sure in what I am going to get a PhD. And over the years, like I came to know that like people, like teachers gave advice that I'm good at STEM fields, and it just happened, like getting into an engineering program.
Okay.
For masters, I went to University of Toronto. Mine
Okay.
was not actually a research program. Like being an international student, like Usmania University is very well known in India. Like it is one of the top public universities, and getting into that from our state is extremely difficult. However, it doesn't have the global recognition, especially in Canada. So as a result, it was difficult for me to directly get into a research program. So what I did is I joined Master of Engineering program,
Okay.
where like luckily our department had one Indian professor who happened to know Usmania University, and he gave me a little research project.
Okay.
And that project was with General Motors.
Mm-hmm.
what General Motors was trying to do is like this solvents, organic solvent-based paints, like the largest producer of organic emissions, like volatile organic emissions in the air. So like now environmental laws are getting strict all over the world, and automotive industry is the major producer of VOC emissions. So they had to change or optimize their paint process.
I
And
see.
my lab was working on like enhancing this water-based, like there are like water-based paints are coming in the market, but the problem with them is like they do not give the fine, like beautiful finish that we want on our cars. So like there will be like a bubble entrapment and blistering, all those like the paint failure happens. So like my lab was to optimize that process, and my job was to study like this nanocoated surfaces, how they would behave under the water environment with the air bubbles. And I was
Okay.
like visualization study on that and try to apply fluid mechanics principles to understand like how the kinetic behavior of solid, liquid, and gaseous system.
I see. So was it a lot of experiments where you would take different kinds of chemicals that you or your team were synthesizing in the lab and sort of paint them on surfaces and put them under different conditions and see their behaviors?
Actually, I was part of like a bunch of PhD students. I was the only master's student, but there were about 4 other PhD students. And like one of the student was developing paints with a different chemical formulation. One was
Okay.
doing functional studies. One was doing like high-speed imaging of droplets, and I was doing high-speed imaging of droplets. However, like because I had exposure to these like PhD students, I could able to pick chemistry and chemical engineering principles from them. And like out of curiosity, I developed my own nano coated surfaces because
Okay.
I also had some background. Like I used to work in my dad's factory as well, where we
Okay.
coat the incident sticks with the different fragrance molecules.
Uh-huh.
And I was developing surfaces with nano coatings in a similar way, like where I would take this already formulated functionalized nano solution and make my own surface with the different properties and
So
study
look,
them. Yes.
okay. Looks like you had all these inherent characteristics of becoming a scientist from childhood, right? Because you were able to pick up things from different facets of your life and apply them to problems that you were facing. And that's
Yes.
really what scientists do most of the time.
Now I got better, but while I was doing, I did not actually recognize like
Uh-huh.
what kind of a person I am. But later
Mm,
in PhD, I came to know, oh, this is how I work. That's how I'm
okay.
separate from the rest of the folks.
Nice. Nice. And I'm going to look at my notes because I want to get the words correct on this one. So, the sponge-based water technology that you have developed during your PhD, it looks pretty fascinating. It also garnered quite a lot of media attention, and you also became an inventor on a patent for that technology. So, let's talk about what motivated you to look for such a technology. How did you go about it? We now sort of have an idea of how you approach problems. And so, how did you go about solving this particular problem and developing this technology? And what are its current capabilities?
So you already know my approach now.
Yes.
So like the PhD project I was looking for is like my PhD lab. It is a polymer processing lab. So like a polymer is like a complex fluid, like a liquid. It is like a viscoelastic between solid and liquid. And my expertise was in fluid dynamics and fluid mechanics. And because I was studying bubbles, what I was interested in is actually studying bubbles in the polymer systems, where we
Okay.
can make more homogeneous composite materials. However, given my background, and there was this huge sustainability revolution going on in Canada, because like Canada is one of the largest producers of unconventional oil producer, and that industry was suffering a lot of carbon emissions and VOCs emissions, water pollution. And my supervisor wanted to use these polymers to clean up the water. That's how, because I had some background in VOCs emissions and dealing with nano-coated surfaces, polymer materials. He suggested two projects for me. Like one is like this Canadian one, and one is with South Korea on drinking water, which also requires bubble-based water treatment process. But I was like into solving environmental problems. So I took this Canadian project. Then like the way I approached the problem is like my supervisor like had these different pieces in mind, but he wanted to use these electrically conductive polymers and use electricity to capture like tiny oil droplets from the water. But like when I went through and did my literature survey, like what I found is like actually this industry has like already like about 1 trillion liters of wastewater, which is unable to treat. And it is like sitting over 200 kilometers of area there. And it has declined over 71% of wildlife in the area. The health conditions are becoming worse in the neighborhood. And to treat that kind of volume of water, we need a lot more cost-effective materials, not like using electricity would be like, it is going to be too expensive. So I thought like, okay, this is like a problem is worth solving, but the approach is not the way to go about it. It is mainly because of the cost. It is not like the method would work. The method would work, but the cost is going to be too high to use for such volume of water. Again, going back to my approach, I have a pretty good sense of cost because like in India, like I did experience like first-hand experience of water challenges. And I had to sense like if we ought to use this kind of low cost materials to clean water, maybe like we can also take something like that kind of technology and take to India and even clean up our own river water. So my target was like, okay, let's keep Indian markets in mind. If it can work there, then it can easily work in wealthier country like Canada. So that was my benchmark. And in terms of developing the materials, instead of electrically conductive material, I wanted to use this nano-functionalized materials because while I was doing underwater experiments, I observed a phenomena where like, you might know, like many people might know, like for example, lotus leaf, if you put on it, it will repel and water will slip off. And if you take like, for example, car glass, if water droplet there, then it doesn't like run away. It will just stick there. It happens in the air, but underwater, like depending on the water chemistry, you can see exact same behavior despite of their surface properties are different. So I could able to observe that phenomena while I was doing the project for the automotive industry. But
I see.
Apparently it is not very well known in water research area, but it is known in chemistry area like in 1920s.
Okay.
So, but I could able to bring those to water research and actually develop my sponges. However, I did not have a chemistry background to like design surfaces, so I had to collaborate with other research groups. And that's how like I ended up working with the nanochemistry group at the University of Toronto, which is very fortunate. Like I had no chemistry background, but this professor is like a founding father of nanochemistry in Canada.
Okay.
He really liked my idea and he took me under his wing and like he helped me finish off the project with the approach I worked with. Also, because of his name, helped a lot, and also I was using some unique techniques, and those techniques were available at Imperial College London and MIT. That's how I ended up doing exchange, visiting. I worked as a visiting scholar in both universities.
Okay, so just to talk a little more in terms of science, when you said that a water drop doesn't stay on lotus surface and slips off, that would have a scientific terminology, right? And when water drop sticks to the glass surface, that would have its own term. And when you said that you observed, so tell us more about those terms, the scientific terms, so that our audience knows more about them. And you said that even though you were underwater, you were able to observe similar properties?
Yes, so despite of their
So,
opposite nature, they can
yeah.
behave same under certain water chemistry conditions.
So isn't it something that surface tension does that causes all of this? Or are there other
Yes,
forces at play? This is going to be educative for me as well, I think. Yeah.
yes, I can see.
Yeah.
So the lotus leaf, which repels water, we would call it as super
Hydrophobic. Yeah.
hydrophobic surfaces. Means they are scared of water. So phobia, it will repel water, and
Mm-hmm.
hydrophilic surfaces, which love water, so the water would stick. That happens in the air, but when you go underwater, like surface tension, of course, that is one factor,
Okay.
but this attachment of water or repulsion, it is called wetting behavior.
Okay.
And what happens is, like, depending on the pH, like water has, like, this industrial wastewater has many characteristics, like
Mm-hmm.
they will have pH conditions, different electrolytes in them, like sodium chloride, magnesium sulfide, sodium sulfide, those electrolytes, and temperature. And temperature can also vary. And yes, so depending on these conditions, like if you just to take like oil droplet
Mm-hmm.
for a similarly hydrophobic surface, like if it is repels water, hydrophobic surface, it would attract oil. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, hydrophobic surface, you would expect oil droplet to attach.
I
But what
see.
happens, it is not like it is not like surface tension of solid and liquid anymore. What
Okay.
happens? There would be a liquid layer in between these
Mm-hmm.
two, and that liquid layer, if we have like hydrogen and hydroxyl ions,
Mm-hmm.
they can also attach to surface of the droplet and the solid surface. So what happens is, if you have like a positive charges from the hydrogen on
Mm-hmm.
one place and hydroxyl ions on the droplets, they both can attach more easily.
I see.
So even though they both are far away from each other, there will be attractive interactions because of opposite charges. Similarly with
Okay.
electrolytes, if you have sodium and chloride, sodium is
Mm-hmm.
positive, sodium is negative, they can again attach with each other. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how also invoke attraction between the droplets and the surfaces, or the bubbles and
I see.
surfaces. But that to happen, we need to have certain surface chemistries on both droplets
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes. Yeah.
surfaces, where they should be prone to attracting these ions, the
Mm-hmm.
water.
Mm-hmm.
That's how, from the longer distances, we can invoke the attachment.
I see.
The surface
And
tension is much more closer, like it has to be right next to each other.
mm-hmm.
Uh, After attaching, how the droplet would expand or contract, that is like more surface tension driven phenomena.
Okay. And these sponges that you're talking about, what material are they made out of? These are some polymeric materials or?
Yes, like for sponges, I was using two types of materials. One is a polyurethane sponge. This is a
Mm-hmm.
polymer that is like widely available, like for example in your mattress, and yes, memory foam mattresses. Those are made up
Mm-hmm.
of polyurethane. I chose them because they're very cost efficient, widely available, easy to fabricate, and as you know, like they are extremely like water resistant. They don't degrade easily in underwater or
Mm-hmm.
harsh environments. That's the advantage of them. And but they do not have like the required chemistries that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You work this charge-based attraction, or like I was also manipulating the surface energies, where like
I see.
the principle from these antimicrobial surfaces, where like on the
I
ship,
see. Yeah.
on halls, like this algae growth is a huge
Mm.
problem
Mm.
in environments. So those ship coatings are made based on the critical surface energy principle,
I
which
see.
is a function of like this hydrophobicity and this charge property together. So I was designing the material to enhance the oil droplets attachment. I was also using the critical surface energy principle. And to achieve that exact surface energy, there is a target, the best target. For that, I was using silica-based nanocoatings. And the advantage of silicon is like it is second most earth abundant material after element after oxygen, and it is like a beach sand, that is a silica. So it should be available across the world. So it can be cost effective, and also it is a non-toxic material. So I have a preference for that nanocoating based on silica, and the chemistry group would help me like with functionalizing those coatings to apply on the.
Okay. And then another quick question that popped up in my head is that the kind of chemistries that you're making on the surfaces and the kind of hydrophobic, hydrophilic interactions that you're trying to build, that would work for, say, oil spill in water. But if we talk about river pollutions, many pollutants are also like detergents or other sorts of chemicals which might be hydrophilic but not good to go into a water body, right? So is it possible to modify the sponges to invert the interaction and also sort of capture hydrophilic particles that should not be there in water, or one would have to sort of completely redo everything?
Answer is kind of yes, but not 100%. Like water is a medium, right? Like so we will still experience the same forces: hydrophobic, hydrophilic, or oleophilic, surface energy. Those factors are going to be same, but the extent, the intensity of these forces would vary, like depending on the surface media. So, for example, we will see emissions in the air. I would use exact same principles, but I will tweak other parameters such as pore size, like large surface area. Depending on the molecule, we will see molecule size, like whether we targeting the smaller molecules or bigger molecules. I would adjust the morphological properties of the materials. But surface chemistry would be still important, but the morphology plays a much more dominant role in the case of air.
Okay, cool. And you also talked about the experiences that you had as a PhD scholar, where you were a visiting PhD scholar at Imperial College London in 2017. And at MIT in 2018. Yes. So I think these kinds of international exposures are really important for you to sort of broaden your horizons and grow as a researcher and become more independent. So how did you come about these opportunities? And are there information platforms that students can look at for finding such exciting opportunities? Or how does one sort of make this possible?
So there are right now, like a global exchange is a huge initiative, like it is going on all over the world. Like scientists are being because as you might know, like United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah, the SDGs.
Challenges right now, and like both developed and developing countries need each other to address. And so as a result, like a global collaboration opportunities are keep increasing. In my case, like my problem was a bit unique because my project, like I was taking like brand new approach, and it was a brand new topic for all the research groups which were involved in the project. And actually, like my thesis committee did not agree with me. At the beginning, they thought it is too multidisciplinary. And they were expecting me to because I had like a pure mechanical engineering background, they weren't expecting me to do some chemistry. And I was starting with all this chemistry and I had no credibility. So they were like, oh, okay, we don't understand anything, you're not getting the PhD. And they were like very firm. This is not worth getting a PhD. That phrase scared me. And immediately I approached many people, and one happens to be the surface chemist that came on board, Professor Jeffrey Ozin. And he actually reviewed my work. He took time and he invited me to give a talk to his group. And they are a huge group, 30, 40 people. And he asked
So they're also at the University of Toronto?
Yes, but they are in Department of Chemistry and I am in Department of Mechanical Engineering.
Got it. Okay.
So he invited me to give a talk in his group, and like I had some preliminary data, and I gave a talk, and he was very impressed with it. And after like in a month's time, like one group says you're not getting a PhD with this work. I was 2 years into my PhD, and he says like, "Oh, this is like a brilliant engineering project. Take everything you need, but you need to give me a nature paper and you all you need. But I want you to work on this critical surface energy aspect of it." I actually did not have that technique at the university. Previously, I found someone like my professor in Imperial College London is like Professor Darrell Williams. He also has this global company like which makes inverse gas chromatography instruments, and they do R&D work for like across the world. Like they have many branches in India, China, like US, and I met his R&D scientist at a conference, and I asked them, okay, actually I'm looking to measure its surface energy, but because this material is so porous, I'm unable to measure it. Can you test with your instrument? And she arranged that, and actually it worked out, and it confirmed my hypothesis. He wanted me to further develop that technique to apply for this nano-engineered materials. So I had no other option other than like chasing Professor Williams. And he happened to be like, he did not say anything to me. He just said like, let's chat. And he gave me 20 minutes of appointment. He did not say anything on the email. And I just went to like from Toronto to London. I just flew there to give a pitch to him. But I wasn't expecting that she would actually host me. I thought like I would just drop the sample and he can run it for me. His company for me. But after my pitch, and he actually liked the project, and he came on board, and I ended up spending entire summer there, and which changed the entirety of the project. And like, but Imperial is extremely dynamic environment, and they don't judge people whether they have background in one specific discipline. At the same time, I also got introduction to this professor at microbiology, and had some preliminary data. Like I did some tests with microbiology as well, and like Professor Hugh Williams in microbiology and Professor Darrell Williams in chemical engineering, they both confirmed my approach is appropriate, because like it's like kind of like chemical, biological, physical. That's why it is harder to see the connections. But from their end, because they were doing the multidisciplinary research, so they agreed like the approach is right, and they gave me the appropriate resources to complete the initial trials of it. So it was a great experience.
So your experience is like testimony of the phrase that beauty lies in the eyes of beholder, right? So your mechanical engineering guys just couldn't see what you were at, at a breakthrough and sort of discovering exciting stuff. But when you actually went to the people who sort of could identify the value of it, you've been flying since then.
Yes, that's how everything changed. And that work helped to solve the chemistry thing. And based on that result, the professor at MIT, actually, he knew my master's work. He came to University of Toronto to give a talk. At that time, my supervisor showed, like, I wasn't there, but he showed my experiments and the work I have been doing. So that's how he knew my work already. And he loved like how I am doing with sponge project. So he also ended up hosting me, and like we ended up working on the like expanding the surface charge property of the materials further.
Great. So I think one feature that we should sort of emphasize here for students is that you've been very open and brave in going out and talking to people, right? You're meeting people at conferences, walking up to them bluntly hey, can you test my sponges? And, then walking and writing to professors and telling them, hey, I found this and let's test it. So you think this is an important factor that has played a role in your professional development? If you were a little coy and you thought that, oh, maybe I should not ask for help and not go and talk to different people, then maybe the story would have been completely different.
Yes, I do agree with it. Like initial 2 years of my research suffered a lot. And also like, although I was doing like a good research in masters, I wasn't like as productive as I hoped to be.
Okay.
It is because I was extremely shy. Like I had like this language problem. Like even though like I learned a little bit of English and how to speak in India, like the way we speak in Canada or UK is completely different. Like you have to be very quick on your feet. People don't have time. So like all our research pitches are going to be like 3 to 5 minutes long. Whether you get the people within the first 3 minutes or don't get it at all. But luckily, like my PhD co-supervisor, she was like a recently graduate from MIT and like a native Canadian, and I was very fortunate to be part of her group. And like she had very good communicators, and everybody was like kind of go-getters. And she wouldn't let me sit back, like being shy and all. Like she was like understanding of that part, but at the same time, she would insist like you have to like take like it is kind of like it is a culture in PhD. Like you have ownership of your own project. It is your PhD, so you have to push it, and all other people are just resources. But you are like pushing the trolley. But because of this exposure to native speaker, I was looking at like how they are like. If you look at the successful and unsuccessful one, it is not because one is genius and the other is average. That's not the case. Like most of the PhD students are small. The difference that makes in research is the people who are go-getters, who can push through like all these difficult challenges. They make a lot more progress than the ones who has to rely on the others. And also like even now, like I'm still a shy and introverted person, but when it comes to task, then I have to be assertive, like extroverted. So I switch personality.
I realized that. So when I started talking to you initially, I felt that, you're shy, but now you've just completely opened up and you're such I am just loving this conversation because you're clearly emphasizing on many important points of a PhD life through your experiences, the importance of a good peer group, the importance of a supportive and encouraging mentor. These are so important, and being a go-getter. So you can't rely on your professor coming in every day and telling you what you have to do for that day, right? It is your journey that you have to take, and you're just so beautifully explaining it through your experiences. So thank you for being candid and being extrovert today.
Yeah.
And just again, so I get the words right, you have had worked at BASF for a while after your PhD, and then you made this shift of more academic style of research, and you came to Imperial College London for your pursuing your research as a postdoc, I would say.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah. And now you're currently working as a co-investigator on one grant, I think, at Imperial College London. And your LinkedIn profile says that you're also an experimenter at the Science and Technology Facility at UK Research and Innovation. Both of these roles are something not very usual that, I know of my seniors or other grad students doing. And being a postdoc and also being a co-investigator on a grant. So spill the beans, and I know you're going to be great at telling us about that.
I need to correct those positions. Actually, right now, like I'm on doing all three of them together. Like I do an engineering consulting project still with BASF, and in parallel to that, like I'm getting the grants of my own, on which I'm a co-investigator. That is to further develop the sponges for microbiology and enhanced crude oil recovery applications. And as part of that, like I'm a co-investigator at Imperial College London and also experimenter at UKRI. So how these things are connected is like, one thing that we need to know in research is like, although people might deny it or maybe true, but there are also published research studies that if you are a non-native speaker, and especially when you are aiming for high journals, like I tend to aim for Nature Science, those branded journals, environmental science and technology, those are like prestigious environmental journals. So I aim high, I target for them. But the challenge with them is like, if you're a non-native speaker, the review process gets a little harder. If you are a female, it gets even harder. And if people can tell like from your name and gender, like you have never published and you're from some non-English speaking country, then it goes a little higher. So my paper, like I did had a nature sustainability paper. It went through it, but it took almost 2 years in the review process.
Okay.
It's kind of not good, like when you're finding a job after PhD. Like our jobs are based on how much we publish. I put all my work in one paper, which took like almost 2 years to go through the review process. So which kind of delayed my transition to next role. However, like Professor Darrell Williams at Imperial, she knew like I'm capable and I can do more. The publication is just a limiting factor, which is taking too long, which not supposed to be. So at the same time, like BASF was looking for this project, like where they had to mix mechanical engineering and chemical engineering principles to develop characterization methods. It is to like upgrade their R&D facility at their headquarters in Germany. Luckily, like she knew like I had the necessary background, so he brought me in on that project.
Great.
Yes. So that's how I entered BASF. But while doing that, like that project is like a more productive use of my skills, my existing skills. But I still had a passion for like developing sponges further so that we can actually address more critical water problems, like removing bacteria. Like bacterial infections are like extremely critical problem across the world. Like currently, like about like 2 million children like die out of bacterial or waterborne diseases each year, and most of them are like age under 5 years. And this due to excessive use of antibiotics, the bacteria also develop this antibiotic resistance. And the projection is now increased to 10 million deaths per year by 2050. So like we have a responsibility from our end to address this kind of challenge. And I wanted to work on that for a long time. So while doing this BASF project, because I already had the skills to work on that project and it was not very challenging, I was working on writing proposals. Because I'm the person who is conceptualizing the projects. Luckily in the UK, the system is like the person, especially postdocs, who are designing the projects, they get to be on the grant. And my supervisors and the college system were very supportive of it. And when I visited in 2017, Imperial College, I also had an opportunity to meet the president of the college, to whom I showed my research, and she was very impressed. Like actually, she's like Professor Alice Gast, who wrote the physical textbook.
I have seen a picture of yours and her on your LinkedIn, so I know,
So she's the one who suggested I should next pursue, like I was doing this crude oil, vivosis, and bacteria, and she said like the bacteria one has like a lot more potential than I'm letting it to be. And she said we have all the facilities to do that, funding opportunities, you should pursue that one. So I came here, it did happen, like it did materialize. Like the professors came on board and they helped me get the grant from the UKRI, like the bacteria project also funded by UKRI, on which I'm a co-investigator. At the same time, I also ended up getting another fund. Like it is like more than like access to UKRI facilities. Like it is a synchrotron facility. where I can use neutron scattering techniques to study physical structure of the materials. So like it's more of my own background, physics-based background for mechanical engineering. So like I also got that access. Yeah.
But then where is your office now? Is it in Germany? Is it in Canada? Is it in UK? Where do you work?
Luckily, like we have this virtual one. We like through Skype calls. Like now we have Microsoft Teams, Zoom. Like it
Yeah.
makes me into a small place.
Yeah.
So like I still discuss on a weekly basis with the Toronto team and help them move on the crude oil side. And here, like I'm at Imperial, but like we have all the facilities to do like the work for Germany, like BASF, and also carry on my microbial research. And we just have calls as needed. And I do visit these facilities time to time, every 3 to 4 months. We'll go in person as well to ensure we all are on the same page.
Yeah.
So for me, like for other people, like if you are from a specialized discipline, you would know a lot and on one topic and you would go in depth. But I see like systems as a multidimensional, as an integrated holistic system. So for me, it is okay. I understand everything and I see how everything is connected. And
And
I
that's
have
been
mixed in
playing
the
out really well for you. Sorry,
yes.
I missed you. Can you say that again?
I also tend to mix techniques. Like I
Okay.
develop a technique for a microbiology project, but bring that to BASF project. Same for BASF project on the powders. I develop a technique and take that to crude oil and I switch them around.
Okay. And I got it from your incense stick example itself when you said that, that experience you brought into your master's experience. So, yeah, now we know that you're an expert at that for sure.
Yes.
So, Vami, you've had a great research career as of now, I would say, and you have also seen the bumps in terms of delay in publications and that affecting getting the next good profile, and how the world or the publishing. I think in general the world is rude to non-native speakers and women, and you've also seen that, but still you've managed to sort of fly high and collect all these accomplishments that you have. If you look back at your PhD experience and collect all the experience that you have through whatever research you've been doing, what would you say were the key factors that sort of made sure that you reached the position that you are at today? And what would you like to suggest future students who are looking and listening to us in this video? What are those key skill sets or thought process that they should have so that they can go through a PhD program? Because it is really tough and could be disappointing at points. What are your thoughts on that?
First, I would say like being a non-native speak people and international students, like we have uphill battle in front of us. And even whether you are doing a PhD in India or at any other country, like the problems are kind of one and the same. Like research itself is very difficult. Even you are doing research in India, you still would have to publish in internationally renowned journals. That's
Yeah.
how our career is made in India as well. So as like many may know, like research is a lot of dedicated work. We need to make a lot of sacrifices, and that's the reason why like we need to have like some clarity. Like you don't have to know 100% where you are going, but taking an inventory of what are your values, where you want to go in life, and how much you can sacrifice for those aspirations. And they can change from time to time. That is perfectly fine, but keep reflecting and thinking about it would help a lot. So like I used to do this like maybe once in 3 or 4 months, like because like we have a semester system in Canada
Mm-hmm.
and I set goals for each semester. But right now, like my work is so intense, like I have to make this reflections on a weekly basis. But sometimes I would have to reflect on on everyday activities as well. Like every hour I need to justify like, why am I doing this task? Because I have so many like things going on at the same time. And that can happen to many PhDs. PhD is a marathon. So having this clarity, like where we are going and what we're supposed to do for that is very important. And along the way, like being like shy and keeping to yourself doesn't help at all. Like we need to speak to other people. I do understand like it is very competitive. That little grant, that one paper maybe like can make or break your career sometimes. But it is good to speak to your colleagues or professor what's going on with you. And sometimes like your professors are not always around, mentors, but having like a friends in other labs like outside of academia would help a lot. They'll keep your human side alive. And in terms of taking responsibility of your own career, like reading books would help a lot. And the career blogs, like I regularly read like Nature and Science career posts. And actually I did not know about, like, it's kind of naive of me. Like I do know like there is gender discrimination exists in India because I was in a mechanical engineering field, but I wasn't expecting that would happen in Western countries because we see like all these professional women.
Yes.
But we don't actually know that they are actually struggling. Like actually as a brown women, we have to suffer even more. I wasn't aware of those, but like luckily I was selected for this Science Alliance leadership program at New York Academy of Sciences, and they educated me about these cultural biases or gender biases or minority groups, which is kind of hurtful. But before entering PhD program, it happens in every country, even in India. So like we're not going to change the system, but having that knowledge would help how to work around the system. And sometimes it is like actually customizing ourselves for the existing system would help a lot. It is a lot less stressful for us and even the people who want to take a risk on us. So that helped me a lot. And another important thing I would suggest is communication skills. That is very important. Like take every opportunity that you get. Like there is no way around from escaping from oral or written communication skills. If you are getting into PhD, you are basically becoming a writer. So those skills and always pitching your research, those are very important. Like people wouldn't have time to go through all your reading papers. So like having a clarity about like what is your problem that you are trying to address, what is your contribution, what is your collaborators' contribution, and being fair to people, like that is also very important. Otherwise, nobody wants to work with somebody who steals credit. Being honest, direct, and giving credit to people is very important. So having this kind of good skills would help you a lot in progressing not just the research career. I think it is true for any career, but of course in sciences it is a lot more harder because everybody is smart and most of the people are
I agree. And since you talked about clarity, it happens, I think, with all the PhD scholars that at the end of their PhD, some of them are really clear that they want to get into academics, and some are really clear that they don't want to get into academics. But there's a huge percentage that's always confused that whether they should go for a postdoc and pursue a career in academics or whether they should join an industrial job. So did you have similar concerns at any point? And if you did, how did you sort of weigh them and reflect, as you said, and made your decisions?
I still have that conflict.
Thank you for being honest.
So I still don't know whether I'm a good fit. Like there are two things. One is based on your personality, your skills, what are you good fit for? And there is other thing is like what you want. So like sometimes like many people suggested that I'm very good candidate for academia. Whenever they look at my CV, they think, oh, like you are an academic candidate. But at the same time, like I'm actually a big picture person. I want to solve like societal challenges like this water problem, environmental problem, which requires like a scaling up, like farming partnerships, raising grants, those ones. And that is what you do more like in industry settings or startup settings. Like, for example, I also study structures at a nanoscale level or atomic scale level. For that, you need to go and work in a national lab. So it is kind of like overwhelming for me as well. But one thing I'm very clear about is like, I want to do like a fundamental research that can have a huge impact on mankind. So right now, like I'm trying to do my best to execute those activities, and let's see what happens. I'll figure it out as I go.
I'm sure you will. And all the very best for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking in detail about so many things that I'm definitely sure would be help to not only just undergrad and graduate students, but any science enthusiast who wants to learn about these fields. I am now going to move on to a fun part of the interview, which is the last section, which is sort of a rapid fire round. So, so it's just 7 questions, and all you have to try is to be rapid. So you can't think, and you have to give like answers off your head, and try to be witty, which I think you already are. So,
Okay, let me see.
are you up for it?
Let's see.
Okay. So my first question is, do you prefer working during the day or working at night?
I'm an early morning person.
Okay. What is the one thing that you wish you did differently in your PhD?
Not to compromise on my expectations because somebody told me that I'm not good enough, not to suffer from imposter syndrome and listen to them.
Okay. And what is the one thing you wish you did not do?
Pardon?
What is the one thing that you wish you did not do at all in your PhD? Which you have done, but you think you should not have done?
Like I had a bully culture. Like I did suffer through some bullies, and
Okay.
in front of standing up to them, I would just walk away. But
Okay.
now I worked on that.
Okay.
Now I stand up for myself.
That's great. What do you think is the most common myth about researchers?
They are genius.
I'm telling the world that we are not.
There are exceptions. There are truly some genius people, but in my opinion, most of the scientists are the one who are like, I would say perseverance is the best quality. Being genius is not enough. You need to be both, but being perseverant, like if you can persevere like a turtle, you can reach much bigger goals rather than just being a genius.
I have to agree with you on that. My next question is, how many hours do you work on an average daily?
Wow. It fluctuates. Like sometimes I work only 4 hours. Like if I'm writing, then I cannot do more than 4 hours of writing work. But if I'm running experiments, it can last anywhere from 8 to 12 hours.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I would like you to define your PhD experience in 3 words. So it could be a phrase of 3 words, or it could be 3 individual words.
Okay. Suffering, sacrifice, surprise.
So you used all the S words.
Pardon?
Great. You have used all the 3 words that start with the alphabet S.
Yes, yeah.
So it's a triple S that you had in your PhD.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and my last question is, since we are facing COVID, how you can use, say, 3 words or a sentence to sort of summarize your experience of COVID, of being a researcher in times of COVID.
I would give like credit to Imperial for this. Like luckily we have very good postdocs and fellows development center. And because Imperial is such extremely competitive environment, they train us to be resilient from early on. And one specific workshop that I went is like where they talked about circle of influence. it is like very famous, like a cult management technique, like where like you cannot, there are like 3 circles where like you can control few things and you can influence few things, and you should be focusing on that. Like for example, what you cannot control, for example, the US elections, just don't worry about it, and you don't have to emotionally get drained about it. Similarly, COVID, we cannot change the situation. All we can do is like put a mask on and wash your hands and get on with your work. That helped me a lot. Like based on that resilience technique, like I made proper decisions at the early on. Like when the COVID was very intense, I went back to Canada where I can feel more safe, and I started like doing my work. Like I had like a lot of writing work to do, and I focused on writing my papers because that's what I can offer to the world. I'm pretending about COVID doesn't help anyone. Like I'm not a major contributor of that situation because I have no competency whatsoever. But I ended up writing like a paper which I can truly feel proud of, which also can have a good impact on treating oil spills. So I'm happy about that. Let's see if when it gets through.
Great. That's a great attitude to have during COVID, I think. And that brings me to the end of the rapid fire round. Thank you so much, Pavani, for being so honest, so extrovert, and sharing all your experiences and learnings with such a huge smile on your face. It has been, I would say, blissful and exciting to talk to you. Thank you so much for being on the Science Chat Show.
Thank you, Nauja. Thank you for inviting me and for all those compliments.
You stay safe and take care.
Likewise. I hope everyone is safe in India, and at least make sure to keep your mask on, wash your hands, and keep yourself and the people around you safe.
Yeah, I hope people start following that more seriously. I'll see you again. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.